Today we're doing Unit 1, 2.3. This is page 93. You guys have 2 homework assignments today. You have 93, and then you also have page 135. So I separated your notes so you would know the difference. If you got stuck on a problem, you'd know where to go. So some of this should be familiar. Hopefully, actually review. The first thing, though, I'm going to make a coordinate plane here to the side, and just to make sure we remember what everything is here. So, who remembers what the middle point is called in a graph? It is 0, 0, but there's an actual name for it.
Oh, is it y-intercept?
No? Close. It starts with point.
Point axis.
Point of origin. Yes, this is called the point of origin. And it is 0, 0. Okay. The line going right and left. Who knows what that line is actually called? Good. The x-axis. And the line going up and down, that is the
Y-axis.
very good. When you go to the right, you are going a positive or a negative direction.
Positive.
Positive to the right,
Yes.
negative to the left.
Yes.
Going up is positive and down is
Negative.
very good. Okay. So when you have a y-intercept, the y-intercept is the point where the graph crosses the y-axis. Okay? That will be an ordered pair, and it will end up being ordered pair where it's 0, comma, and then your number. Because it's not going to be on the x-axis, it's going to be 0 on the x and a point on the y-axis. Right. Okay, slope-intercept form is an equation of the form y equals mx plus b. Remember that m is your slope and b is your y-intercept.
How can you put,
Yes.
how can you put 0
Because remember that ordered pairs, and this is something you might want to write too, always go x, comma, y.
Yeah.
If you have a y-intercept, the x value will be 0 because it's going to be on the y-axis.
Oh, okay. So it's on that.
Standard form is when you have x and y on the left side of the equation and just a plain number on the right. Okay? So this is standard form. And your x-intercept is the point where the graph crosses the x-axis. So this ordered pair would actually be a...
Numbers, comma, 0.
Exactly. Because again, this is your x value and your y value. When you're graphing an equation in slope-intercept form, here are the steps. The first thing you need to do is write the equation in slope-intercept form. And you do this by solving for y. So that means you're just trying to get y all by itself. And then you will have it in slope-intercept form. Okay, step 2 is that you are going to graph or plot the y-intercept, which is your b value. And it's on your y-axis, that's correct. And from there, you use it to plot, and use it to plot the point 0b where the line crosses the y-axis. Okay, the next thing you want to do is identify the slope, which is your m value, and use it to plot a second point on the line. I want to remind you about slope, in that slope is the what? Very good. Rise over run. It's also known as the change in y. Change, okay, I don't know if you guys know this. This is an abbreviation for change, a triangle, okay? It's actually delta.
Oh.
So change in y over the change in x. Okay, and if you don't know that, that represents change.
That's like a mountain.
Yes. Step 4, you will then draw a line through the 2 points. Example 1. So this is already written in slope-intercept form. When you're graphing, we found that there's always 2 things that you need. You need your b value, which is your y-intercept, and your m value, which is your slope. I prefer to not have to write very much, so I will write b equals and m equals. If those don't make sense to you and you want to write y-intercept and slope, you can do that. Remember that b is your y-intercept and m is your slope. Okay? So in this problem, your y-intercept is always the value at the end that's not with the x. So what is y-intercept value? 1. Okay, your slope is always the fraction or number in front of the x. It doesn't include the x, it's just the number itself. Okay, and so what is the value in front of the x?
Over 2.
Perfect. This negative can go with the top number or the bottom number, or you can just have it out in front. The main thing is that one of the numbers is going to be negative and one's going to be positive. If both of them were negative, 2 negatives actually end up making a positive. So just make sure the negative goes with one of the numbers. So if you go back to your steps, the first thing we're going to do is plot the slope. So where do we go for the y-intercept?
You go up 1.
Up 1 and make a point. Okay, so you always start at your point of origin at 0, 0, and from there you went up 1 and made a point. This is now your new starting point. You're going to make your slope from this point. So if I go the way that I have it written, from here I'd go down 3, so 1, 2, 3, and right 2, 1, 2, and make a point.
And then you connect.
And then you can draw your line. Now I'm going to make one more point to just show you, but if I'd put the negative with the bottom number, from this point I would have gone positive 3, 1, 2, 3, and then I had to go negative 2. But if you notice, they all still line up on the same line. So it doesn't matter which one you have the negative with. Right. And remember from geometry that a line has arrows at each end. If you don't write the arrows, that means it's a segment. But this is a line. It goes on forever. It does not end. So make sure you have the arrows at the end of your line. Questions so far? Okay, moving on. Okay, so next we're talking about using standard form to graph. Do you think if you're supposed to graph something and they said graph it in standard form, but you like to graph things in slope-intercept form, do you think you'll get a different answer if you do slope-intercept form instead of standard form?
Yes.
No. It's a line no matter what. It's just different ways of figuring out how to draw it. So if you don't like graphing using standard form, even though the directions say graph it in standard form, you can still change it to slope-intercept form and you'll get the same answer. You'll still make the same line. Okay? But I'm going to show you both ways because sometimes standard form is easier. Okay? So the first thing you would do is write the equation in standard form. With standard form, you then need to identify the x-intercept by letting y equals 0 and solving for x.
That's right.
Use the x-intercept to plot the point where the line crosses the x-axis. So let's go ahead and stop here and do what they just told us to do. Okay, so they said identify the x-intercept by letting y equal 0. So if we go down here, we are going to let y equal 0. So I'm going to rewrite this equation as 2x plus 3 times 0 equals 12 because they said let y equal 0. If you notice, there's no variables in here except for x now, right? And so we're just going to solve this. What is 3 times 0?
0.
Okay, so I'm doing the long way right now. 2x plus 0 equals 12. And what's 2x plus 0? 2x. So we have 2x equals 12. And then we divide by 2 and we get x equals 6. As an ordered pair, this is 6, 0. because my x value is 6 and my y value was 0, which I plugged in, right? So y was 0 and then x is 6. So on the x-axis, I go right 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and make my point. Now, there's kind of a shortcut for this. Can anyone see what the shortcut would be instead of going through all of this work? Yeah, basically, since y equals 0, we know that the y part is going to go away. We're going to like take that out of the equation. Oops, you can't see anything that I'm doing there. You're going to take the y out of the equation, right? So then really, you could just end up writing, okay, 2x equals 12, like skip to right here, and then find the x equals 6. We're going to do the same thing here now for step 3. So identify the y-intercept by letting what equals 0? X. You're going to let x equal 0 and solve the equation for y. Use the y-intercept to plot the point where the line crosses the y-axis. So let's go ahead and do that. So if we go to this equation, if we're plugging in 0 for x, the x part's going to go away. The only thing you need to do is pay attention to what sign is in front of the y value, because sometimes it's going to be negative, okay? So that means I'm going to have 3y equals 12. We divide by 3 to both sides, and we find that y equals 4. And as an ordered pair, how would you write that? 0, 4, because x is 0 this time, x is first, and your y is 4. Remember, ordered pairs always go x, comma, y. So where will I go to plot that point?
On the y-axis.
Good. We're going to go up 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Make that point, and then we draw our line. So basically, if your equation is set up in standard form where like x and y are on the left and your numbers on the right, sometimes it's easiest to do standard form and just find both of your intercepts and draw your line. But if you don't like doing this way, just change it to slope-intercept form and graph it that way. It'll work the same. Okay, so now we're just going to talk about horizontal and vertical lines. Horizontal. What does horizontal mean? I used to always get confused by this. Good. A horizontal line is flat, and if you think about the horizon, that's kind of how you can remember the horizon is flat. It goes side to side. So your horizontal line is always the right-left. And vertical lines always are going to end up going up and down. So, for instance on here, all you have is y equals -1. So what you need to do is you need to go on the y-axis to -1. So where will I go?
Down 1.
Down 1, and you're going to make a point. Now, a lot of people think, oh, it's y equals -1, so I'm going to draw my line here through the y-axis. But that is not correct, because that would say that y equals every single number, and they're saying y only equals -1. And so you need to make a horizontal line through -1. And that is your graph. So on x equals 2, where am I going to go? Where? Right 2. On the x-axis, I go right 2. And which way will this line be drawn? Up and down or right and left? Very good. Because again, if you did right and left, it would be saying that x equals a whole bunch of numbers, and it doesn't. It only equals 2. Do we have any questions?